In a world where wealth and power dictate the rules, appearances often matter more than reality. Leonardo, a successful and influential millionaire, knows this better than anyone. Faced with the pressure to uphold his pristine image, he makes a decision that many would find shocking. He hires Carla, a humble woman struggling to make ends meet, to pose as his fiancée for a single night. Leonardo was the kind of man who had everything: money, power, influence, and a life that many could only dream of. Yet, despite all his success, he found himself facing a problem he couldn't solve on his own: the urgent need for a fiancée for an important family event. It was more than just a matter of appearances. His public image was at stake, and a failure could cost him dearly. That's when the unusual idea struck. What if, instead of seeking a genuine relationship, he simply hired someone to play the part? The answer came quickly and unexpectedly. Carla. Carla, a hard-working young woman, lived in a reality completely opposite to Leonardo's. Working 2 jobs to support her family, she knew the value of every penny and understood that opportunities like this didn't come around twice. When Leonardo approached her with the proposal, she hesitated, but the need to improve her financial situation outweighed her doubts. The agreement seemed simple: pretend to be Leonardo's fiancée for one night in exchange for a considerable sum of money. But what seemed like an easy solution for both would turn out to be far more complex than they could have imagined. "You're really willing to do this?" Leonardo asked, watching Carla closely, as if trying to decipher the enigma she represented. She simply nodded in response. "I'll do whatever it takes to secure my family's future," Carla replied with a mix of courage and resignation. Her words echoed in Leonardo's mind, reminding him of something he had long forgotten: the daily struggle for survival. As the deal was formalized, both couldn't help but feel a growing tension in the air. The suspense of how this charade would be received by others, the mystery of how Carla would perform in such a different environment, and the excitement of venturing into something completely new were palpable. There was an invisible danger in this situation, something they both felt but couldn't quite define. Perhaps it was the intrigue of being so close and yet so distant in their worlds. Carla knew that the night ahead would be a great challenge. She had no choice but to accept, but that didn't mean it would be easy. Facing a reality that wasn't hers, playing a role that didn't belong to her, all of this brought an unexpected twist to her life. But Carla had always been brave, and now more than ever, she would need that courage to face what was coming. She knew that once she stepped into this story, there would be no turning back. Leonardo, on the other hand, found himself facing a dilemma he never thought he'd encounter. He had always been in control of his life, but now he depended on a stranger to maintain this facade. It bothered him, yet at the same time, there was something in Carla's honesty and simplicity that drew him in. This agreement, which was supposed to be just a business deal, was beginning to reveal aspects of himself that he had long ignored. Perhaps deep down, he was searching for more than just a temporary solution. "Are you sure you can do this?" Leonardo asked again, this time with a hint of concern in his voice. Carla looked at him, her eyes showing unwavering determination. "I may not have your wealth, but I know what it's like to fight for what's important," she said firmly. These words resonated deeply with Leonardo, leaving him silent for a moment. The tension between them grew, not in a negative way, but like a taut string ready to snap. Leonardo knew that the success of this night depended on how they acted together, but there was something more at stake, something he still couldn't fully understand. The enigma of how Carla, with so little, managed to maintain such great strength was something that began to intrigue him deeply. And so, with the agreement made, both prepared for what was to come. Leonardo knew he would have to guide Carla through a path full of challenges, while she, in turn, prepared to face a completely new and mysterious world. There was something in the air, a feeling that this night would bring more than either of them expected, and that the danger wasn't just in what others might think, but in what they might discover about themselves. This agreement, which started as a simple transaction, was already transforming their lives in ways they couldn't yet comprehend. The suspense of how everything would unfold kept them both on edge, and the intrigue of what the future held loomed over them like a shadow. Carla and Leonardo knew they were about to enter a dangerous game, where the rules were still being written, and like any game, everything could change in an instant. With the agreement in place, Leonardo wasted no time in starting the preparations for the upcoming event. He knew that appearances would be everything, and Carla needed to be flawless in her role as his fiancée. The first step was a complete transformation, one that would bridge the gap between her modest life and the world of luxury that Leonardo inhabited. "We'll start with the basics," he said, as they entered an exclusive boutique where the finest clothes were displayed as if they were works of art. Carla felt a surge of emotions, suspense, excitement, and a bit of unease as she was ushered into a changing room filled with gowns that cost more than she made in a year. As Carla tried on one elegant dress after another, Leonardo observed her with a critical eye, ensuring that everything was perfect. He knew that this transformation wasn't just about changing her appearance, but also about equipping her with the tools she needed to navigate his world. "It's not just about the dress," Leonardo said, breaking the silence. "It's about how you carry yourself, how you walk, talk, and even how you look at others." The weight of the challenge became clear to Carla. This wasn't just a physical makeover, it was a complete re-education. And with each lesson, she felt the tension building, knowing that she was stepping into a world filled with intrigue and expectations far beyond her comfort zone. The next step was a lesson in etiquette, a crash course on the do's and don'ts of high society. Carla was introduced to the nuances of dining etiquette, the subtle art of conversation, and the unspoken rules that governed Leonardo's world. "Remember, in this world, perception is everything," Leonardo reminded her as they practiced the correct way to hold a wine glass. The suspense of the upcoming event loomed over them both, and Carla realized that this wasn't just about fitting in, but about surviving in a world where every move was scrutinized. The tension was palpable as she struggled to master these new skills, knowing that any misstep could unravel the carefully crafted illusion they were building. As the day of the event drew closer, Carla found herself spending more time with Leonardo, not just learning, but observing him as well. She noticed how effortlessly he commanded attention, how people seemed drawn to him, and how he navigated social situations with ease. There was something enigmatic about Leonardo, something that intrigued Carla as much as it intimidated her. "What's your secret?" she asked one evening after hours of practice. Leonardo smiled, but there was a hint of something deeper in his eyes. "Confidence," he replied simply. "But more than that, it's understanding the game and knowing how to play it." His words hung in the air, adding another layer of complexity to the already challenging task ahead. Carla knew that she had to embody that same confidence if she was going to succeed. But how could she, a girl from a humble background, ever truly fit into this world? The thought weighed heavily on her as they moved on to the final stages of preparation. There was a sense of impending danger, not physical, but the danger of being exposed, of failing to live up to the expectations placed on her. But despite the pressure, Carla's determination only grew stronger. She wasn't just doing this for herself, she was doing it for her family, for the future that this opportunity could secure for them. The stakes were high and the tension only added to the drama of the situation. Leonardo too felt the pressure mounting. For him, this event was more than just a family gathering. It was a test of his ability to control the narrative, to maintain the image he had worked so hard to build. And now, with Carla by his side, the stakes had never been higher. The suspense was almost unbearable as he watched Carla transform before his eyes, from a humble girl into someone who could stand beside him in the spotlight. Yet beneath the surface, he couldn't shake the feeling that he was walking a fine line between success and disaster. The mystery of how this night would unfold lingered in the back of his mind, creating an atmosphere of tension that neither of them could ignore. In the final days leading up to the event, Carla was put through a series of rehearsals, each more intense than the last. Leonardo insisted on perfection, pushing her to the brink as they practiced every possible scenario. "You have to be ready for anything," he told her, his tone serious. "There's no room for mistakes." The pressure was immense, and Carla could feel the weight of the expectations bearing down on her. But with each passing day, she grew more confident, more capable of handling whatever the night would throw at her. The transformation was almost complete, but the real challenge still lay ahead. As they stood in front of the mirror, Leonardo adjusting the final details of Carla's appearance, there was a moment of silence. Both knew what was at stake, and the gravity of the situation hung heavy in the air. "Are you ready?" Leonardo asked, his voice low and serious. Carla met his gaze in the mirror, her expression one of determination mixed with a hint of fear. "As ready as I'll ever be," she replied, her voice steady despite the turmoil inside. The night was fast approaching, and with it the culmination of all their efforts. But as they prepared to face the world, neither could shake the feeling that something unexpected was lurking just around the corner. The final hours before the event were a blur of last-minute preparations, each moment filled with a sense of urgency and anticipation. Carla could feel her heart racing as they drove to the venue, the reality of what she was about to do hitting her full force. Leonardo, ever the enigma, remained calm, but even he couldn't hide the tension that gripped him. The suspense was almost tangible as they approached the grand entrance, the weight of the night pressing down on them both. But despite the fear, despite the uncertainty, there was also a sense of excitement, of possibility. This was their moment, and they were ready to step into the unknown. And so, as the doors opened and they stepped into the glittering world of high society, Carla took a deep breath and prepared to play the role of a lifetime. The transformation was complete, but the real challenge was just beginning. With Leonardo by her side, she knew that the night would be filled with intrigue, tension, and drama. But what she didn't know was how it would all end. The suspense was electric as they made their way into the heart of the event, ready to face whatever awaited them. And as they did, a single thought lingered in Carla's mind. In a world where appearances were everything, would the truth remain hidden, or would it come crashing down on them both? The night of the event arrived with an air of anticipation that could be felt in every corner of the grand estate. As Carla stepped out of the car, she was greeted by the dazzling lights and the soft murmur of the elite gathered to celebrate. The tension in the air was almost palpable, a mix of excitement and danger that made her heart race. Leonardo, ever composed, offered her his arm, and together they walked into the lion's den. "Remember, Carla, tonight is about playing the part," he whispered as they approached the entrance. The suspense was overwhelming, but she knew she had to remain calm, collected, and convincing. Inside, the opulence of the event was beyond anything Carla had ever imagined. Crystal chandeliers cast a warm glow over the room, reflecting off the expensive jewelry and tailored suits that filled the space. As they were introduced to the guests, Carla felt the weight of every gaze, the curiosity and judgment behind each pair of eyes. "Leonardo, you've truly outdone yourself this time," an older gentleman remarked, his tone laced with intrigue as he looked Carla up and down. The tension was thick, and Carla could feel the pressure mounting. She knew that one misstep could unravel everything they had worked for. Throughout the evening, Carla played her role flawlessly, smiling at the right moments, nodding politely during conversations, and maintaining an air of grace and poise. Yet beneath the surface, she felt a growing unease. The people around her were polished, sophisticated, and utterly superficial. There was a coldness in their interactions, a lack of genuine connection that made her feel out of place. As she observed the way they spoke to each other, the way they sized each other up, she realized that this world, despite its glittering exterior, was filled with danger and deceit. The suspense of the night was no longer about maintaining her cover, but about surviving in a world where the stakes were much higher than she had anticipated. Leonardo, for his part, navigated the evening with ease, his charm and charisma on full display. But even he could sense the tension in the air. He noticed the way people glanced at Carla, the whispers that followed them as they moved through the crowd. "You're doing great," he whispered to her during a quiet moment, but there was a hint of concern in his voice. The mystery of how the night would unfold weighed heavily on both of them, and Leonardo couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched, scrutinized by those who had their own agendas. The intrigue of the evening was not lost on him, and he knew that they were walking a fine line between success and disaster. As the night wore on, Carla found herself increasingly drawn to the world around her, even as she remained cautious of it. There was something intoxicating about the wealth and power on display, the way people moved and spoke with such confidence. But there was also something unsettling, a sense of danger lurking beneath the surface. Every conversation, every glance seemed to carry a hidden meaning, a potential threat. The suspense of the evening had shifted from the external to the internal, as Carla grappled with her own feelings of inadequacy and fear. Could she really pull this off, or was she in over her head? At one point, Carla found herself alone on the terrace, the cool night air offering a brief respite from the intensity of the event. She looked out at the city lights, her thoughts a whirlwind of emotions. She had come so far from her humble beginnings, and yet standing here in the midst of luxury, she felt more lost than ever. The intrigue of the night had taken a toll on her, and she wondered if she could truly continue to play this part. The danger of being exposed was ever present, and the tension within her was almost unbearable. But as she took a deep breath, she reminded herself of why she was here, her family, her future, and the promise she had made to herself. Leonardo soon joined her, sensing her need for a moment of quiet. "It's a lot to take in, isn't it?" he said softly, his gaze following hers over the city. Carla nodded, her eyes reflecting a mixture of awe and fear. "I never imagined it would be like this," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. Leonardo turned to face her, his expression serious. "This world isn't as perfect as it seems," he said, his tone filled with a gravity that matched the tension of the evening. "But you're stronger than you think, Carla. Remember that." His words offered some comfort, but the mystery of what lay ahead still loomed large in her mind. As they rejoined the party, the atmosphere had shifted. There was a palpable sense of anticipation in the air, as if everyone was waiting for something to happen. Carla could feel the eyes on her, the whispers growing louder, and the danger of being discovered seemed closer than ever. Yet, she held her head high, determined to see this through. The suspense was almost too much to bear, but she knew that she couldn't afford to falter now. Every moment was a test, every interaction a potential trap. The tension in the room was electric, and Carla could only hope that she was prepared for whatever came next. The climax of the evening approached with a sense of inevitability. Carla could feel it in the way people began to gather, their eyes filled with curiosity and suspicion. Leonardo stayed close by her side, his presence a reassuring anchor in the storm of uncertainty. But even he couldn't predict what was about to unfold. The mystery of the night was reaching its peak, and the danger they had both feared was now on the horizon. The suspense was almost suffocating as they stood together, waiting for the moment that would decide their fate. And then, it happened. A moment of silence fell over the room as the host called for everyone's attention. Carla's heart raced as she realized that this was it, the moment they had been preparing for. The tension in the air was thick enough to cut with a knife, and Carla could feel the weight of every gaze on her. Leonardo squeezed her hand, a silent gesture of support as they stepped into the spotlight. The suspense, the intrigue, the danger, it all came down to this. As Carla prepared to speak, she knew that whatever happened next would change everything. The night was far from over, and the real challenge was just beginning. As the evening reached its peak, the atmosphere in the grand hall became almost unbearable with tension. All eyes were on Leonardo and Carla, the so-called couple of the night, as they stood at the center of attention. The host, with a glass raised high, called for a toast in their honor, his voice booming through the room. To Leonardo and his beautiful fiancée, Carla, may their future be as bright as this evening. The crowd erupted in applause, but beneath the surface there was an undercurrent of curiosity and suspicion. The suspense had been building all night, and now it was about to reach its breaking point. Carla felt her heart pounding in her chest as she realized that the moment she had been dreading had arrived. She was expected to say something, to play the part of the doting fiancée in front of everyone. But as she looked around the room, at the faces of people who saw her as nothing more than an accessory to Leonardo's life, something inside her shifted. The pressure was immense, and the tension was almost suffocating. She knew she couldn't continue this charade, not without losing a part of herself in the process. The intrigue of the night had taken its toll, and Carla was no longer willing to be a pawn in this dangerous game. Taking a deep breath, Carla stepped forward, her hands trembling slightly as she took the microphone. The room fell silent, all eyes now locked on her. She could feel the weight of their expectations, the danger of saying the wrong thing, but she also knew that this was her moment, her chance to reclaim her voice. "Thank you all for being here tonight," she began, her voice steady despite the storm of emotions raging inside her. "I'm grateful for this opportunity, but there's something I need to say, something that's been weighing on me all evening." The suspense in the room was palpable, as everyone leaned in, eager to hear what she would reveal. Leonardo watched in stunned silence as Carla spoke, his mind racing to understand what was happening. This was not part of the plan, and the mystery of what she was about to say filled him with a sense of dread. He had always been in control, always the one pulling the strings, but now it was as if the roles had been reversed. The tension between them was almost tangible, and Leonardo could only stand by as Carla took the reins of the night. The danger of what she might reveal hung in the air like a dark cloud, and he knew that whatever happened next would have consequences they couldn't escape. With every word, Carla felt a weight lifting off her shoulders. She spoke not as Leonardo's fiancée, but as herself, a young woman who had been thrust into a world that wasn't hers, forced to play a role that didn't belong to her. "The truth is," she continued, her voice growing stronger, "I'm not who you think I am. I'm not part of this world, not really. I come from a small town where I've had to work 2 jobs just to make ends meet. This dress, this night, it's all an illusion. An illusion I was willing to play along with, but now I realize that it's not worth losing who I am." The room was deathly silent, the suspense almost unbearable as Carla laid bare her truth. As the reality of Carla's words sank in, the crowd was left in a state of shock. The tension that had been building all night now erupted into a cacophony of whispers and gasps. The carefully constructed facade that Leonardo and Carla had built was crumbling before their eyes, and there was no going back. The danger they had both feared had come to pass, and now they had to face the consequences. But even as the night descended into chaos, there was a strange sense of relief in the air, as if a long-hidden secret had finally been brought to light. The mystery was unraveling, and with it, the power that had held them all captive. Leonardo, still reeling from the shock of Carla's unexpected declaration, felt a mix of emotions, anger, fear, but also a deep respect for the courage it had taken for her to speak out. In that moment, he realized that Carla had given him something far more valuable than the perfect image he had been trying to maintain. She had given him the truth, and with that truth came a clarity he hadn't expected. The tension between them had shifted, no longer a barrier, but a connection, forged in the fires of honesty and revelation. The danger was still present, but now it felt different, less about survival and more about finding a way forward, together. The room was buzzing with activity as people began to process what had just happened. Some were shocked, others intrigued, but all were affected by the raw honesty of Carla's words. It was as if a spell had been broken, the illusion shattered by the power of truth. The suspense that had gripped the evening had now transformed into something else, something deeper, more profound. Carla had done the unexpected, and in doing so, had changed the course of the night, and possibly the course of their lives. The mystery of what would happen next lingered in the air, but for the first time Carla felt in control of her own destiny. As the night drew to a close, the aftermath of Carla's declaration began to take shape. Some guests left quietly, others stayed behind, eager to see how things would play out. The tension had not dissipated, but had instead morphed into a different kind of energy, one filled with possibility and uncertainty. Leonardo and Carla stood together, side by side, both changed by the events of the evening. The danger of being exposed had passed, but the real challenge was only just beginning. The intrigue of what lay ahead was almost overwhelming, but there was also a sense of hope, a belief that perhaps out of the ashes of this night, something new and true could emerge. Leonardo turned to Carla, his expression a mix of admiration and concern. "You didn't have to do that," he said softly, his voice tinged with a newfound respect. Carla met his gaze, her eyes filled with determination. "Yes, I did," she replied, her voice unwavering. "I couldn't continue living a lie, not even for a night." Her words resonated deeply with Leonardo, and he realized that she had shown him something he had long forgotten, the importance of integrity, of staying true to oneself, no matter the cost. The tension between them had dissolved, replaced by a bond forged in truth and mutual respect. As they left the grand hall, the night air cool against their skin, Carla couldn't help but feel a sense of relief. She had faced the danger, the intrigue, and the suspense of the evening, and had emerged stronger for it. The mystery of what would come next was still unresolved, but for the first time in a long while, she felt ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. Beside her, Leonardo walked in silence, deep in thought. He had started the night with a plan, a clear vision of how things would go, but now everything had changed. And yet, there was a strange sense of peace that came with that change, as if a new path had been revealed. A path that, while uncertain, was filled with possibility. The suspense of what lay ahead lingered in the air, a reminder that their story was far from over. The night had ended, but the echoes of Carla's unexpected declaration still reverberated through the lives of everyone who had been there. The once celebratory atmosphere had turned into one of shock and reflection, and as the guests slowly dispersed, they couldn't shake the impact of Carla's words. For Leonardo, the aftermath was particularly profound. He had always prided himself on his ability to control every situation, to shape the world around him to fit his needs. But now, he was forced to confront the reality that some things were beyond his control, and that sometimes the truth had a way of breaking through even the most carefully constructed facades. As Leonardo sat alone in his study the next morning, he couldn't stop thinking about the events of the previous night. The suspense of how things would unfold had kept him on edge, but now that it was over, he felt a strange sense of calm. Carla's bravery had forced him to see things in a new light, to reevaluate what was truly important. The mystery of why he had been so obsessed with maintaining his image was beginning to unravel, and in its place, a new understanding was taking root. The danger he had feared of losing control, of being exposed, had not destroyed him. Instead, it had opened the door to something he hadn't expected: growth. Carla, too, was dealing with the aftermath of her bold move. She had returned to her modest apartment, far removed from the opulence of Leonardo's world. But she felt different, stronger. The tension that had gripped her during the event had given way to a sense of empowerment. She had stood up for herself, for her values, and in doing so, she had discovered a courage she didn't know she possessed. The intrigue of the night had revealed a new path for her, one that wasn't defined by her circumstances, but by her choices. The drama of the evening had tested her limits, but it had also shown her what she was capable of. In the days that followed, the consequences of Carla's declaration began to ripple through both their lives. For Leonardo, the change was immediate and undeniable. He found himself questioning the decisions he had made, the life he had built, and whether it was truly what he wanted. The suspense of not knowing what the future held was daunting, but it was also liberating. For the first time in years, Leonardo felt free from the burden of expectations, both his own and those of others. The danger of losing everything had been real, but in its place, he had found something far more valuable: the ability to see beyond appearances and to appreciate the truth. Carla, meanwhile, found that her life was also changing in ways she hadn't anticipated. News of her speech had spread, and while some people were critical, many others were inspired by her honesty. The intrigue of her story captured the attention of those around her, and she began to receive opportunities that she had never imagined possible. It was as if her act of bravery had opened doors that had long been closed to her. The tension between who she was and who she had been pretending to be had dissolved, and in its place, there was a newfound sense of purpose. Carla realized that she didn't need to change who she was to fit into someone else's world. Instead, she could carve out her own path, one that was true to herself. Leonardo couldn't get Carla's words out of his mind. The way she had spoken with such conviction, such authenticity, it had struck a chord deep within him. He realized that he had been so focused on maintaining his image, on controlling how others saw him, that he had lost sight of what truly mattered. The suspense of trying to keep up appearances had consumed him, but now he saw that it had been a distraction from what was really important, his own happiness and fulfillment. The danger of living a life dictated by others' expectations had been exposed, and Leonardo knew that he needed to make a change. In the weeks that followed, Leonardo began to take steps toward a new way of living. He started by reaching out to Carla, wanting to thank her for what she had done. "You changed my life that night," he admitted during their first conversation since the event. Carla, surprised but grateful, responded with humility. "I just did what I thought was right," she said, her voice calm and steady. The tension that had once existed between them was gone, replaced by a mutual respect and understanding. The mystery of what the future held for both of them was still uncertain, but they knew that they were better equipped to face it. Leonardo also began to reevaluate his relationships, his business, and the way he interacted with the world around him. The intrigue of what lay ahead no longer filled him with fear, but with excitement. He started to focus on what truly mattered to him, his passions, his values, and the people who were important in his life. The suspense of living up to others' expectations had been replaced by the thrill of discovering his own path. The drama that had once consumed him was now a thing of the past, and in its place, there was a quiet confidence that came from knowing he was finally living authentically. Carla's life also continued to evolve. She pursued new opportunities with a sense of purpose and determination, no longer held back by the limitations of her past. The tension between her old life and the new possibilities before her had disappeared, leaving her with a clear vision of what she wanted to achieve. The mystery of what her future held was no longer something to be feared, but something to be embraced. Carla knew that the challenges ahead would be great, but she was ready to face them with the same courage and integrity that had guided her through the night of the event. In the end, both Leonardo and Carla emerged from the experience transformed. The danger they had feared, the loss of control, the exposure of their true selves, had not destroyed them. Instead, it had led them to a deeper understanding of who they were and what they truly wanted out of life. The suspense of the unknown still lingered, but it was no longer a source of anxiety. Instead, it was a reminder that life was full of surprises, and that sometimes the most unexpected twists and turns could lead to the most profound growth. As they continued on their separate journeys, Leonardo and Carla knew that their lives would never be the same. The intrigue of what lay ahead was still there, but now it was tempered with the knowledge that they had the strength and courage to face whatever came their way. The drama of the past was behind them, and in its place was a future filled with possibility and hope. The suspense of what might happen next was something to be embraced, not feared. And as they looked to the future, both Leonardo and Carla knew that they were ready for whatever challenges and opportunities lay ahead. As we reach the end of this remarkable journey, it's clear that the decisions we make, even in the most unexpected moments, can lead to profound transformations. Leonardo and Carla's story is a powerful reminder that courage and integrity often come with great challenges, but they also bring the most meaningful rewards. Now, I want to ask you, what would you do in their situation? Would you stand up for your truth, even if it meant risking everything? Life is full of moments where we must choose between maintaining appearances and embracing our authentic selves. And it's in these moments that our true character is revealed. But this story doesn't have to end here. It's an invitation for you to reflect on your own life. Are there places where you've been hiding behind a facade? Are there decisions you've been avoiding because they feel too risky? I challenge you to take a step toward your own truth, to face those moments with the same bravery that Carla showed. Because in the end, it's not about the wealth we accumulate or the image we project. It's about the person we become in the process. If this story has inspired you, if it's made you think about your own life in a new way, then I encourage you to stay with us. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you never miss another story that can transform your perspective. Let's continue to explore these themes together, diving deep into the narratives that shape our lives and challenge our understanding of the world. Remember, every great journey starts with a single step. Make sure your next step is one toward truth and authenticity.